jump into that, I do want to just kind of start off with some general overviews of what the RIFT Act actually is. And if I'm able to share my screen, here we go. Got so many things going on. Okay, quick tech check. Can everyone see my screen? Fantastic. Okay, as Adam mentioned, we did have a bill that passed through the entire legislative process. And as of today, well, it's been a few weeks, but announcing today, it is grown up into a full-grown public charter. So Public Charter 741 is our kind of bill that has been signed by Governor Lee and is actually in effect as of July 1st. So the effective date will be July 1st, 2026. But it is signed, it is state policy, and we'll go into a little bit more on kind of how this applies to your nonprofits before I hand it over to Johnny. Boop-a-doo. There we go. So, kind of what is this new law? Specifically, it is a way to make it an easier process for you all to receive gifts from donors who have listed your nonprofit as a beneficiary. So, if they want you to receive these gifts that might come from a will or a trust, well, I won't say trust because I think that's in the will, but retirement benefits, insurance, things of that nature, this is a way to make this an easier step. So essentially what this will do, it is a law that for nonprofits who have money left to them, again, through bank accounts, retirement plans, there's a very specific language called non-probate assets, which everyone was like, absolutely. Those benefits and those funds now have a way to get to your organization without a lot of red tape that was previously kind of preventing nonprofits from either receiving those gifts, knowing about those gifts, or if they knew about them, banks or other property holders were finding different ways to make sure that they were able to retain those funds. So this kind of cleared out a lot of that red tape so that there is a smooth and simple process for nonprofits who are beneficiaries to receive those gifts from their donors. Also, we have been able to implement a 10-day rule. So if a bank has found out that a customer has passed away and has listed beneficiaries as a part of that account, they have 10 days to notify those beneficiaries that they have money. Now, one quick note, and they must try to call or to write or to contact you in some way. One thing to note, though, this is a to the best of their ability type of language. So if a donor has Baptist Church written down as a beneficiary, there are 10 bajillion Baptist churches in the great state of Tennessee. That is a specific number, I know. But this is very important for your donors to be as specific as possible when designated beneficiaries so that banks do not have to contact and will not contact 10 bajillion Baptist churches who may or may not be the intended beneficiary of this gift. But if they know, if they have said Tennessee Nonprofit Network, I want to name as a beneficiary on my, insurance plan, great. They will have 10 days to let us know. So important words to know, beneficiary, fancy word for someone who gets that money or property after a person has passed away. An affidavit, which you will have in order to kind of bypass those red tapes, is that, piece of paper that a nonprofit signs to prove that you are the correct charity and that you have the ability to claim that gift. And then a holder is, usually a bank or some kind of institution where that property resides. So if you were named as a beneficiary, the holder is who you're going to submit that affidavit to in order to receive that gift. So when you're asking for that money, when you're putting that affidavit together, again, there will be a few things that they also have the ability to waive. If they're like, hey, we've known you forever, we don't need all this, they can waive this. But if they may not be as familiar with you or are dealing with a pretty significant gift that they want to just do some due diligence on, this is all that they are able to ask of you in order to receive that gift. Your IRS letter, which is the proof that you're actually, in fact, a 501c3. the state certificate, which you will have from the Secretary of State in Tennessee, showing that you are an active nonprofit in Tennessee, which this is a good reminder. Make sure that you are registered and that those are up to date, which is an annual thing in the state of Tennessee. Proof of death, whether that's a news notification or, death certificate, something that says, hey, we know this person passed away. Here's how we know this. Your authority to say, I am indeed the person who can receive this gift on behalf of my nonprofit, whether you're the ED, CFO. Again, every nonprofit may have a different procedure on who can accept gifts and donations on behalf of their nonprofit. And then your W-9 form, which, kind of is a standard government form to make sure that, they know kind of your entity is for tax forms. And that's it. Those, 5 things will be a part of your affidavit process submitted to the holder of the property. 0 personal information is required. Prior to this, they could ask for your social security number. They could ask for personal addresses, things of that nature, run background checks, credit checks, etc. They are no longer able to ask you to do any of this process if you have your affidavit in order. And then, of course, when you receive this, you start this process, and when you receive this process, that gets done usually within 90 days, or it has to be done within 90 days. And it can be as fast as 60 days, but there is now time limits on once you initiate this process and documentation is successfully submitted, how quickly that needs to be processed. And again, the legislation has 90 days, but usually it's a little bit faster if they can get their ducks in a row. And then again, just some paperwork guides that we won't go through. I will be sending this deck out as a follow-up, so y'all can dive into paperwork and what that is if you need it, and of course here to ask. So if you know that you have this process in effect, step 1, bank sends you that notification. Congratulations, you are a beneficiary on this gift. Yay, everybody hopes to receive that email soon. You'll collect your paperwork and all of your documentation for that affidavit. You send that to the bank, and then step 4, you receive the money to fund your mission. Hooray. So a fairly simple process, well, as simple as any, government style paperwork process can be, but at least you're not having to go back and forth, disclosing any personal information, things of that nature. And there's a standardized process in place. So you also don't have to, this banker holder of information does it this way, this banker information does it that way. It is a standardized affidavit process. And if the bank, for whatever reason, says, no, I actually do need your social security number, and just causes a hoopla about this whole thing, there actually is a way for you to bring them to court and make sure that they are held accountable for, no, the law has changed. This is the process. And you have up to 1 year to take them to court if needed, hopefully not. But there is a little bit of teeth that was included as a part of this legislation to make sure it is implemented and adopted by everyone. And again, just for those in the back, this law does start July 1st, 2026. So we are very excited about this being implemented. I know, several folks on this call have been through this headache a few times already. So this was actually a request from one of our members. So thank you to those who brought this to our attention. And we're very excited that as a part of our organization and a collective group that work together to advance the mission as a part of a coalition around this issue. Again, several folks on this call are part of that effort. Thank you to all. We're very excited for this to be implemented starting July 1st and go from there. And I'll put this in the chat, but if you do have any questions, this is my information and my email. And if I hadn't introduced myself, I'm Natalie Jones. I'm the Director for Advocacy and Research here at Tennessee Nonprofit Network. So with all of that, I'm going to put a pin in this and hand it over to Johnny Hayes, who is our kind of subject matter expert on this issue. And again, Johnny, thank you so much for joining us. Would love to know your experience with kind of RIFT, how you've seen this being implemented in other states, and anything else that you would like to share with us this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Natalie. I appreciate that. The first thing I want to say is congratulations to all of you in Tennessee. Thank you for Natalie. And I know there were so many people that worked with you. I don't want to miss, recognizing everybody that was on there. But thank you. You all did the best job. And I am just really so proud of you. The reason that you have this RIFT law is because, yes, good job. Yeah. Um, because nonprofits have been saying for a few years now that they are having the hardest time with broker dealers, banks, financial institutions getting these claims paid. The amount of paperwork has become out of control, over 50 pages just, and what they do is they make you open up a new account, become a full-fledged customer of that financial institution, just to then eventually put the donor's money in your new account, and then you have to liquidate it with an entirely new set of paperwork. Well, when they make you become a new customer, then they read federal law to say that they can ask for all of this personal information out of individuals employed or on the board of a charitable organization. We've seen criminal background checks and your last 6 addresses and your mother's maiden name and all these terribly sensitive information, um, and the driver's license and passports and all this kind of stuff. So this law was so incredibly important. It started out that Iowa did that a few years ago, and other states have said we need that same protection for Tennessee nonprofits. And so that's why it is so important. And Natalie, you've really led the team. Best case scenario is the law that you have on your books. So this spring we had a total of 4 states. And so we're up to 6 states now. So we're just at the front end. But I have to say, I'm analyzing all the 6 states, and I think Tennessee's the best. And I mean that sincerely. Yep. I'm really proud. And so I'm going to tell other states going forward next year, look at what Tennessee did. So what we found in Iowa, so we've had this law in Iowa for a couple of years. We were first out of the gate. And so if I was being kind towards the financial firms, I would say that maybe they weren't aware of the law that was passed. And so they have continued to send the charitable organizations the old paperwork and just say, here, fill out all this paperwork and become a new customer of us. And so the Iowa charities have had to say, no, wait a minute, there's a law that protects us, and here's the law. What that means for you in Tennessee is that I would expect the same sort of treatment from the financial firms, this sort of veil of ignorance that they don't know about it. It- they likely do, but anyway. So what we'll have for you is a sample affidavit that matches your law, that says here are the things that are included with this affidavit. It's easy to do. Somebody just has to notarize it. It sounds like a scary legal word, but it's not. So we'll have the affidavit for you, and then we're also we have the sample cover letter that we've used in Iowa. We'll modify it for Tennessee that says, oh, thank you, but by the way, here's you might want to be familiar with Tennessee law effective July 1, and here's the things that we'll send you, and thank you for sending our distribution within the 60-day window. So we'll have that for you to make it easy. I suspect it'll take some time before these broker dealers really proactively reach out to you with knowing that they have the law. So expect that a little bit, but we'll push back. And with that 60 to 90-day window, it is not going to take a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I had one charity tell me that they hadn't been paid in 10 years. And so this is a 60 to 90-day window, and this is just what you need. We have had 100% success in Iowa pushing back. And so we're very happy about that. And we want you all to have the same success in pushing back. Just a little bit about the accounts that are covered. So they're your traditional pay on death accounts at banks, transfer on death accounts at brokerage firms, all your IRAs, your 401ks, all of those accounts are what we call the non-probate accounts. And so they're all covered. Natalie went over a great job with that PowerPoint and everything. That was really good. But those are the types of accounts covered. Now, the only thing that's not covered under your law is insurance. Anything that is life insurance is not covered. Life insurance is not a popular way of giving to nonprofits at death. So I don't think that's going to be a tremendous issue, but I just wanted you to know life insurance policies are not covered. A key thing is that it specifically says in your legislation that you cannot be required to be a new customer, which is, 3 cheers for that. So that's something the Iowa law doesn't have. And that kind of came out, we're learning as we go. And so I'm asking our legislature next year to go back and add those provisions in there so that our law can be as strong as yours as well. Also, what's key in yours is that you need to be notified, as Natalie said, that you are a beneficiary. Because I've had more than one horror story by these big broker dealers that the nonprofit was their client already, in terms of that brokerage firm was their 403B plan administrator. And the person worked at the charity and died and left their own organization, their 401k plan. And yet that broker dealer sat on it for 16 years and never told their client that they were the beneficiary of that account. That's why you have that provision in there. And so I'm so proud of that as well. Iowa doesn't have that, so we want to add that as well. That is really, really key. And that's a wonderful provision in your legislature. That's why it is so good. The time period to pay, that 60 or 90 days, is fantastic. And that you have an effective date already in July. So if you can tell, I'm super excited for Tennessee, and you are going to be the lead legislation that I want the other states to look at for next year. And so, does anybody have any questions for me? Oh, the one other thing I saw, the effective date, that's what I wanted to mention. It says it applies to any conduct occurring or causes of action arising. Well, we're not going to have a cause of action, but we're going to have conduct occurring around July 1. What I read that to mean, and Natalie and you all correct me if I'm wrong because I wasn't part of that discussion, but I think if you have a death claim in process and it hasn't been paid by July 1, I think you can go back and say, hey, wait a minute, let's have this claim paid under this new Tennessee law. So that's what I think that means. So anything in process, I would encourage you to July 1, get a hold of that company with that cover letter and say, we want our claim paid under this new law. But yeah, I want to stop. Natalie, do you want me to take any questions if
Yeah,
people have any?
would love to take questions, and thank you, Johnny, for actually answering. Well, I didn't even know I had that question, and then when you were talking about the effective date, was very helpful because I know I've had several people reach out and they're like, we're currently in kind of process or in discussions with some kind of holder moving through this. We know legislation is coming. When does it take precedence? So again, we're not entirely sure. The intent is for it to, if you have current action like you were talking about, or current activity, maybe that's a better word,
Yeah.
it being applied. So Excellent.
Sure. Or if you have a claim, pause it, pause the paperwork until July 1. I would, but
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm. Oh, but I do see a hand. Great Smoky Mountain, AFP.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Was the bill accepted as it was proposed, or was there any changes that were made to it as it went throughout the process that there were potentially any aspects of the bill that were lost that you would have liked to seen added in, or anything like that that we should be aware of with the bill as it stands?
Natalie, do you want to
Lost,
tackle
I
that?
guess, in the middle of it.
I know that every state started out with the model law, and every state there are, let's see, one, two, three, four other states that have legislation, and everybody worked with the lobbyists, and every state things went back and forth and were negotiated. If there was anything that I would say that your law doesn't have, would be the life insurance, provisions that were taken out. The life insurance industry. They have a huge lobbying sector, and so they've done that in the other states as well. The good thing is that most all of our death benefits, a lot of them, probably 80%, are going to be IRAs, 401ks, 403s, Bs, so those are covered. But yeah, so every state is ending up with a different bill in the end. So you sort of go through the sausage making process and comes out with something a little bit different. But yours ended up the best through the legislative process. So good job again.
And I will quickly add, so there was a little bit of a process, which again, Adam and Reed helped us navigate. We met with different interest groups and different parties on, banking side, on the insurance side. Adam, I'm probably missing a few other groups that we also met with and talked. So this was a very collaborative effort. And I must say, for the Tennessee banks, for our Tennessee-based banks especially, they understood and they've seen this process and they were very responsive. And we get it, we see it. Here's how we can meet in the middle to make sure that this is as beneficial of a law for y'all, but also making sure that we can remain in compliance with the law to our best of the ability as well. So there was some good partnership and work in there. For the insurance, for the life insurance specifically, we met with their group, and Tennessee actually has a title, and I think don't quote me on this, I think it's Title 56. Adam, you may have to keep me honest there.
Yes.
It is Title 56. Yes. That actually governs all insurance claims. And as a part of that title, a lot of the goals of our policy or this piece of legislation were already being met to some degree. So if it meant moving forward with our law, or kind of bickering, and again, life insurance being kind of a small potatoes type thing, since Title 56 did exist in the way that it did. So to the Tennessee nonprofits on this call, do not fear. Life insurance is not often some no man's land hellscape. There is laws that do govern those kinds of benefits or beneficiaries as well. So just quick thing.
Yeah. Natalie, there's a great question that came in. If so, it doesn't, they're asking about what state. So a great question, and I apologize for not clarifying this in the beginning. So this RIF law protects any death claim for any nonprofit in Tennessee. It doesn't matter where your donor lived, and it doesn't matter what state the financial institution is in. All that matters is that it's your death claim and you're a Tennessee nonprofit. So, for example, you could have a donor in Wyoming that died and left a gift to a Tennessee nonprofit, and the IRA is held at Fidelity in Boston, and it protects your organization. And there was also something in your law too that also said if you're, for example, the American Cancer Society, but you have a chapter there in Tennessee, that protects that chapter there in Tennessee. So it doesn't matter where the donor lived, it doesn't matter where the bank is, it protects you if you're a Tennessee nonprofit. So thank you for asking that in the chat. What other questions might you have?
Johnny, I know, and again, please, everyone, put questions in chat, raise the hand. Another question that I had received via email from someone that I was like, oh, I'll put a pin in this and then ask during our call is outside the affidavit, especially if you receive pushback from a bank holder, or a property holder, to kind of start that conversation of, hey, the law has changed, this is the process now. What are some ways that you've seen kind of work well and, kind of starting that, if there's already some conversation back and forth with a property holder, prior to, again, our law going into effect?
Yeah, I think if you've provided them with, a copy of the law and the affidavit, and they're for some reason pushing back on that, wanting to violate the law, then I would ask them to escalate it to the head of their compliance unit or their, legal counsel for their, their general counsel's office or the head of compliance, ask to escalate that, because obviously there's somebody that's working there that doesn't understand what the effective law means on how they process business. So I would ask to escalate that up. And, worst case scenario is that your nonprofit's general counsel sends a letter to the general counsel at Fidelity or Ameriprise or, whatever, if that initial escalation doesn't work. And then, of course, then the nonprofit, you always have the ability to file a local suit. Your general counsel will in your local county, and the damages are up to $10,000 per incident. So that usually will get the banks and the brokerage houses to sit up, take notice, and pay attention and pay the claim. Like I said, in Iowa, we have had 100% success, and every claim has been paid within, a matter of a couple weeks. So I don't foresee you having to escalate it, but you never know about the person that's at the bank and is working the death claim. But I really see it being successful. And it's really just educating these financial firms. They know, they just kind of want to pretend like they don't know the law. So if they can get you to fill out all their forms, then, they're going to think it's easier on their end of things. So yeah, let that law work for you. How do we secure a copy of this new law was a question that just came in on the chat too. Natalie, is that something that you're
Yes. So
providing everyone?
as a follow-up, we will be providing a copy of the public charter with a signature and everything. So this is the public charter. So we will be sending that out as part of the follow-up. And internally, we will also kind of think about how to make sure that this is an open resource for others who may need that. So again, this is not,
Okay.
We'll try to make this available, but everyone on this call and who registered for this webinar will receive an actual copy, and we'll figure out some way to make sure that it's publicly accessible as well moving forward.
If I can offer this resource, so I'm the RIF project, but the National Association of Charitable Gift Planners asked me if I would put my information out on their website. They host it for me for free. And so there's a section on that website. You can just Google National Association of Charitable Gift Planners. and there's an advocacy tab across the top. And then under that, there's the IRA beneficiary. That's the RIF database. That's freely available to any nonprofit. You do not have to be a member of the National Association of Charitable Gift Planners. But on there, we will begin to post the different state laws. And so I'd love a copy of that signed charter. And I'll put that on there. And I'll also put the affidavit, the sample affidavit for you to find. And I'll also put the cover letter. And so it'll be there by state, like I was there, and we'll add Tennessee and Indiana and everybody else. And so that's a place for free that everybody could go to if they need that information. And I'm happy to post that. So yeah, let's see. Yep, and the Rift Advocates, yes. Rift Advocates is and Patricia Bowen is on this call, and she has done a great job. She has single-handedly volunteered to run the Rift Advocates. So what Rift Advocates is, it's just people that work on death claims from the various nonprofits across the country, and they get together once a month via Zoom, and they help each other out. So they might say, I'm having trouble with Fidelity this month. Does anybody have a good contact to get paid at Fidelity? Or, somebody will say Ameriprise is giving me trouble, and they meet every month. And so any of you can also join that. That's for free. This is all just grassroots, us helping each other out in this space. And so you can go on to that and sign up. It's we meet the first Wednesday of every month. And so, yeah, reach out to that and join as well.
Sounds wonderful. Okay. Any other last minute questions? I don't see anything in the chat, but we are less than 5 minutes from 1 o'clock Central. I know we've got a few Eastern folks.
Well, great job, everyone. I'm very proud of you, and you're going to be the role model for next year's for the other states. There's about 20 states that want to do this for next year. So they're going to be looking at the Tennessee law.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thank you again, Johnny, for your expert guidance as we worked through this legislation. I appreciate the quick phone calls and the quick emails and your responsiveness on all of that, because when you're in legislative session, conversations move fast. And again, huge thank you to the Rift, Tennessee's Rift Advocates. I know they're, again, Marion, Scott, Patricia, I think Paul was on here earlier. There were so many of y'all as well. So thank you, huge thank you to y'all in your efforts around this. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead.